McCartney got back live. A once-in-a-lifetime must-see event. Paul McCartney performing a catalogue of music that's formed the soundtracks of our lives. Casey Centre, October 14th. Get tickets now at highvtix.com.
Derek, what's the guarantee? Derek?
Mike, time to make history. Players at Circa Million make 5 picks against the spread each week with quarterly and full season payouts.
Circa Survivor entries choose one team each week with no point spread. The last one standing wins it all.
We have $21 million on the line. Are you in? Visit circasports.com for details.
Chad Leistikow, Scott Dochterman, the two biggest Hawkeye and Big Ten beat writers, together on one show. GameDay Men's Health proudly presents Legends and Listeners. Best enjoyed with an easy Eddie from Big Grove Brewery. This is Legends and Listeners, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. Legends and Listeners is back with a new intro. Man, that was pretty spicy. Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register, back from vacation. Scott Dochterman of The Athletic, back from Las Vegas. We're joining you on this Thursday morning from the Channel C studios, brought together in one pod on Iowa Everywhere. Thanks to GameDay Men's Health for being our sponsor, our title sponsor. Also want to officially welcome Big Grove, who you hopefully saw in the intro, to the Legends and Listeners family. So pumped about that partnership. Obviously, you guys know we had Ben McCullum and a lot of fans out at Big Grove in Iowa City a couple weeks ago. A lot of fun. We appreciate their support as well. And we'll tell you more about Big Grove as the show goes on. But Scott, we were kind of texting a little bit earlier this week, and both of our football juices are starting to flow here. So what gets you going football-wise this time of year the most?
Well, there's all kinds of different things, Chad. I think for me, when BTN starts hitting the road and starts doing the 1 hour shows from different places, I think I start to get kind of, all right, they were in Nebraska, they're in Minnesota, they've been in Penn State and Rutgers and Maryland, and you start to really okay, now I'm starting to learn a little bit more from those teams. It's kind of incremental. I've noticed that's the way the season kind of progresses, but then you get to Big Ten Media Days, you get to, the BTN hits the road, and then what we've got coming up this week, which I'm happy to be able to attend again, and that is Iowa Football Media Day and Iowa's open practice on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll be previewing both. I mean, as much as you can preview Media Day, it really is a big day for you guys, the fans, because you get so much information. And then how Iowa does it is like, what do you get about, 17 hours later, something like that. You're right back at it, and then poof, it's all gone again. It's like Kaiser Sose. It's just gone. Just back to it disappears again, and then you see it in week one. But it's fun for us to gather fun for us to gather a lot of stuff, and so we're going to preview that as we go, Scott. But first, the coaches poll came out this week, and obviously, it means nothing. We know that, but it does give us a little bit of a fodder. There it is. Aiden's put it up there on the screen. 6 Big Ten teams are ranked, one of them not being Iowa. So the 6 Big Ten teams in the top 25, actually the top 19, Ohio State at 2, Penn State at 3, Oregon at 7, Illinois at 12. That's pretty high. Michigan at 14, and then Indiana, which comes to Kinnick in September at 19. Yet another Iowa opponent, Iowa State, tied for 21st. And then Iowa was among 5 other teams receiving votes, along with USC, Nebraska, Washington, and Minnesota. So that's 11 of the 18, Scott, got votes. I wonder when the last time that Wisconsin didn't get votes in a preseason poll was, by the way. That has to be a stat out there somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know, and I would have to look even farther than what I did. I mean, because the other day I wrote our story about the poll and had to add who's underrated, who's overrated, and here's a stat to me that stands out about the coaches poll and why it's worth noting, and then it's worth throwing away. And that is that only 12 out of the 25 actually made the final top 25 that were in there. Last year. And among some of those that didn't, I mean, here was number 10 was Florida State, which finished 2-10.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's about as bad as it ever gets. Utah was 13th, and they were 5-7. Oklahoma State was 18th, and they went 0-9 in the Big 12.
Wow.
Arizona went 4-8, and then KU, which I think was a good 5-7 if there's ever such thing, but they were 24th. Iowa was 25th last year going into the season, and they were 8-5. So I don't think they really qualify as that. I mean, they were on the border. If they would have beaten Mizzou, they would have been in there. If they didn't, they didn't. So I think it's interesting though, because this is what the coaches think. And this is probably the only time, except for the finale, that they actually probably pay attention to it. Or they usually hand it off to their chief of staff or the SID or whoever to figure it out. So, but it is notable that there are 6 Big Ten teams.
Yeah.
I had 2 Big Ten teams as overrated, Ohio State and Michigan. But
okay.
Ohio
Tell us
State,
more about that.
Yeah, I mean, with Ohio State, they had 14 guys go in the draft. They have the 2 best players, in my opinion, in the country. But you've got a quarterback that's thrown just 12 career passes. You lose the entire defensive front that was the best defensive line in college football last year. There's just to be number 2 to start. I think that's pretty rich, And I know they're the defending champion, and they very well could end up in that position. But I think that where they end up and where they are is 2 different things. And then Michigan, only won 8 games last year. They had the worst passing offense in the Power 5, even worse than Iowa's. And they also had 2 first-round defensive tackles, and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, and they're going to be starting a true freshman at quarterback. I think 14's a little rich for them. But as for the others, I think that they're about right on. I think Penn State actually should be a spot higher. Yeah. And I think that Illinois at 12 is right for what it brings back. It won 10 games. It has 16 returning starters. It has, an elite quarterback sort of for last year. And Luke Altmaier, he had 3 game-winning touchdown passes in the final minute of regulation or in overtime. You have one of the best pass rushers in the country, Gabe Yakas. You have a shutdown first-team All Big Ten corner in Xavier Scott. You have your starting left tackle. Lots to really like in Illinois, and they have a schedule that's conducive to that. Now, will they beat Illinois and go 5-7 like they usually do? That remains to be seen. They went 5-1 in games decided by 1 score last year, and we know teams like that tend to revert to the mean. So, and then I would say Indiana, it's fair, but I think they're better than that.
Better than 19?
Yeah, I do. I think there should be like 16 or 15 myself.
Okay. All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, it's not going to play out like it is in the poll, but I would say that if you guys have listened to our shows, you probably know this already. But I would say of the teams that did receive votes, I like Iowa and also Washington to maybe to finish in that top 25. Just my opinion. Just teams that I think they're underrated right now. USC is an interesting one. USC is very interesting to me because. There's not many years they are unranked, coming into the season. We'll see what Lincoln Riley does, year 2 in the Big Ten. And, of course, the Hawkeyes go out to L.A. in mid-November. That's going to be such a big, interesting game. Who knows? It'll be so interesting to see where the Iowa season is at that point, right? You'll be 9 games in. What will they be? Will they have already a couple big upsets, or will they be sort of blah, 4-5, 5-4, something like that going out there, or will everything be on the line? Taking the 2 time zone trip out west and the dreaded California trip, for the Hawkeyes. So that, to me, USC is going to be an interesting team to watch if you're a Hawkeye fan, because they're just going to be looming and potentially out there to, either ruin your season or whatever. So Interesting. But anyway, it got me thinking, Scott, about just expectations. I wrote a column about it this week in the Des Moines Register, and we've talked about, we think Iowa's probably I think Iowa's a little bit better than that 7.5 win total, but we know the schedule's tough. And so it's a really interesting year for expectations, right? Because when they were in the Big Ten West, you kind of had a good feel about the opponents, and you kind of this should be about an 8-4 team, but if everything goes right, 9-3 is possible. Hey, if really everything goes right, 10-2. But like this year, to me, Scott, like I think every fan's going to be just a little bit different. I think certain fans are just like, and I felt that in my text group. Like there's just no way they're going to win more than 8 with the schedule. Other fans are very bullish. Like I think they're going to the playoffs. And then I also think there's a segment that hasn't. It's just going to be interesting, if Iowa has a good team and still just doesn't have a good record, how the reaction will be. So how do you kind of feel about all that stuff?
I think last year I was more bullish that this was the year to cash in all the chips. And I think that was the right approach. But the quarterback let him down. I didn't think quarterback would let him down that bad. And as we saw, Iowa State, UCLA, Michigan State, those games were winnable games, and Missouri for that matter, that the quarterback did not perform to even modest, expectations. So, Ohio State was a better team, no question. But that shouldn't have been quite the score that it was. I think that what you look at with this team is, I think you be cautiously optimistic. I think at this point, you should look at this team at this juncture and say, they have a chance to be really good. Now, what is really good? That's ambiguous. And it's fair because with this schedule, as you mentioned, they're playing 4 teams that won at least 11 games last year. Iowa State, they got to go on the road. Now, they've had success there on the road, but that doesn't mean it's automatic. Indiana is, I think, a very talented team, and it's going to be a really challenging game. Penn State might be the best team in the country. And, they're ranked 3rd to start in the coaches poll. I think they'll probably be number 2 in the AP poll. And then Oregon was 13-1 last year. And you're playing them too. Right. And then, by the way, you've got your rivalry games. I think Nebraska's put together a better roster. Minnesota, outside of quarterback, which is very uncertain for them, but he's because he's young, but a really pretty good roster. As you said, going to USC. USC recruits at a different level than Iowa does. Talent-wise. Doesn't mean they're a better team, but it just means that you got to know the challenges. And as we've said, last year they should have beaten UCLA, but the West Coast got them. And, you've got to deal with that. Michigan State, you play them at home. They beat you this year. So,
At Wisconsin, you didn't even mention that. I mean, good grief. Going to Camp Randall's never easy. I don't care if you beat them 42-10 last year or not.
Right. They have that for you because that's something that was their mantra in the offseason, 42 push-ups, 42 sit-ups, because they do not want to get beat by 42 points again against Iowa. And so you throw all of that in there, that is a really challenging schedule. But, one thing I've learned about covering this program, Chad, all these years is that no coach, very few coaches in the country, but certainly in this part of the world, has a better approach to handling the day-to-day, week-to-week than Kirk Ferentz. And I look at this year as the potential to be 2009. I really think that that's possible. In 2009, they played some damn good teams. They played, I think it was Ohio State, Penn State, and Wisconsin all won 10-plus games that year. And, they played some other tough teams. I mean, Arizona was challenging. Played Michigan with Tate Forcier and then Denard Robinson came in late. I mean, they had some really good opponents. And they struggled at times. Michigan State was a good 6-6 team. Iowa State went to a bowl game, yet they kept a really good approach, Chad. It was week to week to week. Because if you look at it in totality, even before the season, Kirk was like, we could have a better record than or worse record than last year and be a better team. He said it point blank at his media day. I think I look at this team and I say, okay, you try to take the totality of this, you're going to get a number. Because I think on paper, the way I figured it out, they have the second most challenging Big Ten schedule. And
Wisconsin,
Wisconsin's is worst of all time.
It is. It's great.
Yeah.
Just go look at it if you guys want.
But the layout of it is beneficial for Iowa.
Yeah, agreed.
In your first 5, you've got 3 opponents you should beat. I mean, Rutgers could be challenging if you play poorly, but if you play decent or well, you should win. At Iowa State will be a challenge. Indiana at home to bookend it is a challenge. Then you get a bye week. So 5-week stretch, and there's not a team that they can't beat, but there are 3 teams that can beat them. And then they have a bye week. Then they have a 3-week stretch against some, rivalry game. Well, all 3 can be rivalries. I put them in my top 70. Penn State could be the number 1 in the country. Minnesota at home. They beat you the last time they played at home. And then another bye. Then you get Oregon at home. That's going to be tough. But it lays out to the point where it's not just like, we got to play all these teams at the same time. So right. I think it's a challenge, but I think it's one, if they can stay healthy and the right positions grow, that they could compete all year. I don't know. I know you said your group chat is kind of up and down, your text group chat on for the Register. And what are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, I think I'm glad you remembered that from 2009. I was out east. I didn't cover the team that year, but obviously was very plugged into the team and following it from afar. But that's interesting that Farron said that, because that's how I feel too. That they could be better this year than they were last year. They better be. I mean, they should be better this year than they were last year, despite losing, the Higginses, the Castros, all those guys, Lachey, big names, but they should be better this year. I mean, the offensive line should be great. You think the quarterback's going to be good. We've heard great things about receiver. We've been through this stuff. Running back, you lose Caleb Johnson, but you feel really good about the room as a whole. And you have Phil Parker, and you have maybe the best special teams in the country. So, seriously, they might. That's not a stretch. So I feel the same way. That's what I feel about this team. I think it's going to be a very good team, and the schedules is the thing that brings me pause. And then the biggest question then, Scott, is, which is what we wanted our second topic to be, is just, again, how good is Mark Gronowski? We don't know that yet. I know we think we might know, but there's a lot of even Hawkeye fans that I've come across that are skeptical about this because they've been burned by Cade, and it's FCS to FBS. And, there's a few red flags in the numbers. I mean, the completion percentage, you'd like to be higher. I feel pretty good about it. I mean, talking to Tim Lester, whatever it was, it's been 3 weeks now, I think. But I feel like he wasn't all in on Gronowski necessarily. He just wanted to, he still wanted to see it. He hasn't gotten to plug him into the Shanahan office, at least, not until July 30th. So, I feel very good about this team, but I think that's the next question. And that's where I'm seeing the biggest amount of both excitement, because Iowa put out a practice clip this week. First one they've really shown of Gronowski. There it is. Aiden's showing it right now on the screen. He's rolling out of the pocket, broken play, on the run, off 1 foot, laser throw if you can't see it. Caden Weechin tiptoes the sideline. I think that was in front of TJ Hall for the catch. Yeah. And so that's the kind of, those are the kind of throws that just get your juices going if you're a Hawkeye fan, because that's a guy making a play on the move, right, Scott? So, is that 1 out of 50 in practice, or is he doing that all the time in practice? We just don't know. But good news, we get to see Kids Day on Saturday. For
sure. That's one thing I've always looked forward to. The spring practice is always good just because there's no football. I'm kind of all right, I got to see football. And then it's but 15 guys are hurt and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, we'll try to see football. It's like preseason football. This is real, because it's legitimate. Now there will be injuries. I know Jeremiah Pittman's out, had knee surgery and still out for a little while. And there'll be other guys with bumps and bruises that won't participate. That's understandable, but there's some legitimacy to this one. You've got all your freshmen in, your guys who are out after having off-season surgeries in January are back and competing. And you could start to see some of the semblance of the team, like, oh wow, that freshman really got plugged into there to the rotation or the first team or second team or something like that. So you kind of start to see guys move around. That's what I'm anxious about. But specifically with Mark Gronowski, he's a guy I identified a long time ago. I thought he would be a perfect fit for Iowa, and he brings different elements than the quarterbacks that they've had for a while. I mean, first, he can run. And he's thrown, he's rushed for 37 touchdowns in his career and almost 1,800 yards. And I know it's South Dakota State, but he is fast, legitimately fast. Now, he's not as quick as Brendan Sullivan, but he can run, and he can run on the move. He can make every throw you ask him to make, which is, it could be short screen passes, it could be deep outs, it could be post patterns, or it could be OTC over the center. He could do all of that you're looking for, and he could do it with effectiveness. But I think where he separates himself certainly from Cade McNamara, and it's like as wide of a gulf as we'll ever find, it's the character part of things, that he is all about competing at the highest level with integrity towards his teammates, and it is strong with him. And I think that's one thing, that the competitiveness and the ability to win games based on what he does, I think is something that will translate. And what it does for this team, Chad, is when he can do that, and he will do that at some point. It might be a 2-minute drive against Albany for all I know. But when he does that, then the teammates will have instant confidence boost. The receivers, it's like, wow, he went 4 for 4 for 73 yards and a touchdown on this drive that took us 1 minute and 14 seconds to get down the field. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, we feel like we can play with this guy. Beathard was the guy that could kind of elevate guys. Stanzi to an extent, not as much as Beathard, I think. And then, of course, Drew Tate could as well in his first year as starter, not necessarily in his last two. But I think Gronowski has the track record, he has the build, he has the tangible gifts, but most importantly for this offense, not only he puts that all together, but then that'll increase the intangibles. So if they can be healthy, I expect this offense to be significantly better statistically, and 5 to 7 points better overall per game.
Yeah, the Beathard was the one I thought of. It's the first time they've had a quarterback that can. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we think. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Got to see it. But I feel like, when's the last time Iowa had a quarterback that was the difference between winning and losing? Now, Stanley was a very underappreciated quarterback, no question about it. But I would go back to Beathard. I would go back to 2015 Beathard, game 2 against Iowa State. Back in the end zone, guy scrambles for 57 yards, out of avoids a safety. And
avoids a safety and leans over and then runs that, 57 yards. And then he had a flick pass to Jordan Canzeri and then a hard high pass in the end zone to Tavon Smith. It was maybe, I don't know if I'm being hyperbolic here, Chad, but in the time that I've covered Iowa, probably the greatest singular drive I've seen from a quarterback. Because remember the situation, they lost Iowa State the year before. Yep. This was a team that was floundering kind of in public opinion, and they were on the road and they were getting beat. I don't know if the score was they're down or not, but at that juncture, but he elevated Iowa to a level that it's like, okay, now they start to believe. He's got the swagger. I always called him Jax Teller from Sons of Anarchy. He walks in the room and everybody's like, all right, there's our guy. And I think Gronowski's got that same kind of cut to him. He's bigger. He's more physical, no question. He's probably faster overall. But, can he make those key plays? Look at the Pitt game that year. I mean, that draw, and to be able to get down with 2 seconds left and call timeout so they can attempt a 57-yard field goal. And Nate Stanley had better overall statistics than Beathard did, but he wasn't as, the clutch moments are what separates quarterbacks, and Beathard had it, and if he had better receivers his second year as a starter, he would have been better too. Right.
Yeah. I mean, his best receiver that year was George Kittle, and he was out second half of the year. So they're down to Nate Weeding and Riley McCarron for later in the year. But anyway, good memory on Beathard. Yeah, that was the game where that's where you felt like, again, difference makers. And then you mentioned the pick game, and then that season was off. You know, they were off to a 12-0 season, even when he was dinged up with no midsection, basically.
Yeah.
He's jumping over piles in Indiana to help him go 9-0, you know, and get him all the way to 12-0. So that's what you're hoping you got in Mark Gronowski. But that's what I think that has to be the biggest story this week, Scott, right? This weekend that we get to cover, Media Day Friday, and Saturday, Mark Gronowski is, you know, how is he looking? And you just want to know, is he the real deal? Is he in 11-on-11? Is he what you thought he was going to be? You know, and we'll get to see one practice, but the interviews that we have on Friday, I think, will inform us quite a bit. So to me, it's a huge story this week, like where we can actually, I think we can learn a lot. Like, I think we'll get a good vibe one way or another, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody's going to, as we know, on media days, it's kind of this confident feel, although sometimes, you know, with us too, sometimes you can get a little bit more and maybe off record. You know, they might say, well, you know, you guys struggled today against this or whatever, but we're going to get a good vibe. And, you know, I remember last year specifically, I asked Kirk after, you know, because the quarterbacks were awful, especially Cade. And I asked him point blank, is this what you've seen game in and game out, and he, you know, or day in and day out? And I said, is this any different or is it the same? He's like, oh, it's pretty much the same. And that's what made me, you know, and then I had other people inside say, Brendan Sullivan's outperforming him. And it's, and the only person who can't see it is Cade McNamara, is what I was told from one person. And, you know, and it was probably true, you know, and so I think that, yes, this is going to be one. And I also want to see the other quarterbacks too, because, you know, after going so many years without really any injuries at all to your starter, and having issues there, it's been kind of a rocky road for Iowa, you know, since Spencer got, you know, hurt a couple of times, and then, you know, and then lately with Cade and Brendan Sullivan last year, they're down to, you know, fifth string walk on and all that. And so I think that, you know, wanting to see Hank Brown, you know, he had a full spring. Jeremy Heklinski, what does he show? Because the next question always is going to be, Chad, is, okay, Mark Gronowski looks great, but what about next year? You know, what about the backup? And that'll be the next question we get.
Yeah, they do have to pick a number 2 before the season. Hank Brown certainly feels like the front runner, but at Big Ten Media Days, I can't remember if we talked about this a couple weeks ago or not. I know Tyler and I did, but like it sounded like Heklinski was 3 right now ahead of Jackson Stratton, and I think that's the vibe. So it'll be interesting. That's why we want to see those guys too. Like Lester's real high on, Ruggiero is real high on Heklinski. Just when, you know, he had mentioned he was going to be a 4-year starter at Wake Forest, he thought. So you do want to see that, yes, but to me, it's this season, the expectations we just talked about, it's all about Gronowski. Because if he can stay healthy and be the gamer, and, you know, because you're going to be in games, if you have a good team, and I think Iowa has a good team, but that offensive line, that receiving core that I think is coming along, I feel really good about that part of it. Not worried about running back at all. It's the quarterback. It's the quarterback. So how good is he? We'll find out this weekend, Scott. And a lot of other storylines as well going on, but he is the biggest story, and this is his shot, right, at FBS quarterbacking. And speaking of shots, needles are something I've always hated. But thanks to GameDay Men's Health, I legit look forward to seeing that needle every week with that sweet testosterone boost thrusting into my veins. GameDay Men's Health can help you get your T levels back to where they were when you're in your 20s. And if you can think back to when you were in your 20s in all facets of your life, that's how you can feel again, even in your early 50s like Scott and I are. So testosterone replacement therapy is real, and it is spectacular. Get connected with GameDay Men's Health for a free private, no obligation, free consultation. Did I say free? By visiting GameDayMen'sHealth.com, or just stop by one of their locations in Ankeny or West Des Moines where I go, or North Liberty where Scott goes. You doing okay over there?
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking of they're real and they're spectacular for Terry Hatcher from Seinfeld. Of course, us guys in our 50s, us old dudes understand that reference, but so yeah, it'd be kind of
I'm
rolling
glad you
on
got
that. Yeah, they're real. And they were spectacular, no question about that.
Jackie Childs, yeah.
Yeah. But to go on to try to pivot, and a Friends reference here, but I think with Gronowski, here's the thing: when we talked about that schedule, Chad, with this schedule, you have to have a quarterback. A couple of years ago, they were able to navigate it and, pull out pull wins out of their ear and other orifices and go 10-2 in the regular season. And with Deacon Hill at quarterback, you can't do that. You can't have that kind of performance against Indiana, against Penn State, Oregon, you might, Iowa State on the road, Nebraska, USC. I mean, you could be staring, if you have a bad quarterback play with this, you could be staring at, you're gonna be lucky to get to 6-6. I mean, it's just that tough of a schedule. So you're gonna need
9.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that bad. And when you brought up year to year, and I think that's the right mindset that people should have here. I mean, we always look ahead. It's just natural. But right now, I think for whether it's the team, Kirk turned 70 last week. Who knows how much longer he's got in here. This is a team that is built. Last year's team had the defense that was built for the present, but it didn't really live up to it was good, but it wasn't like exceptional like we thought it would be. This one, I think the defense is a little bit, inexperienced in some spots, and you want to see kind of how they grow. But I think the offense is built to compete. And because the running game is so good. I mean, Bruce Feldman comes out with his freaks list this week, and to see two starters on it, Cade Pieper and of course Logan Jones, and I could have argued for Jennings Dunker as well, but Preston Reese just kind of blew up this year. So I think with 3 bona fide freaks up front, and then you throw Bo Stevens in, who is a mean SOB. There's really one question mark I have up front. You got to handle left tackle. And Mason Richmond was, last year was pretty underrated. I mean, I thought he was pretty good. I was really surprised through the draft process that he didn't get more buzz, because I'm like 4-year starter at left tackle at Iowa. And ultimately got drafted, and I'm proud of him for that. He was a really good young man, and I'm hopeful that he gets a chance there, and I think he will. But who could come through there, because that's something that when they go against Mikel Kamara from Indiana, or Mateo Ugalele from Oregon, who's as good as there is in the country, or Dennis Sutton from Penn State. I mean, Anthony Smith from Minnesota. I mean, you're going against dudes who are going to be playing on Sundays and getting a lot of money to play on Sunday, more than they get in college. So I think that's going to be something I'm going to really watch as well, is to see what happens there.
Yeah, 3 candidates probably: Bryce George, Jack Dotzler, and Trevor Locke, unless someone else has emerged, unless Cam Leonard is a shocking participant there. But that'll be it's truly, to me, a 3-way battle. I mean, I think I asked Tyler this on our show this week, so I'll ask you the same thing, because I'm curious of your answer. Who do you think gets the first snap? We'll say on Kids Day. Who gets the first snap on Kids Day at left tackle?
It's hard to say, because I haven't known what they competed with over the last week.
Right. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, I would say going into camp, it was probably a Dotzler situation, but I don't know. Maybe Bryce has been able to put it together in the last couple of days, and so and they do rotate guys. I hate the Arbor prediction, but I would just say going into camp, I would have expected Dotzler to be the first guy, but Bryce George might have caught up by now, so we'll see. I mean, somebody's got to block Max Llewellyn. I don't know who's got to do that, although he'd be more on the other side, I suppose. But
Dunker didn't play in the spring game, and Llewellyn was dominant. Dunker might keep him at bay, but yeah. But yeah, no, to me, if you see Bryce George out there, that's probably a really good sign that he's made a really strong impression. If what's going to suck is if it's a Jennings Dunker rest day and they've got one guy at right and one guy at left and they're rotating all over and they don't show you anything. But I don't want to give them any ideas. Not that they're listening to this, but
they might actually. I hate to say that, but it's true.
I just wanted to put the best guy at left tackle to start Kids Day because you know what I mean. Just let's get it going here. But
answer some questions for us. Don't leave us with more that we can answer. And
well, we will be talking to George Barnett on Friday, of course, and that'll provide some window. Open. Yeah, he is. He's very honest, and he loves his guys for sure. He loves all those guys. I mean, he loves Locke. I mean, they're very high on this offensive line. I mean, the depth is, I think, there too. That's exciting. But left tackle, you're right, is a huge thing. I mean, you don't need a Aiden Hutchinson situation, against I mentioned this on our Hawk Central show too. But it's you go back to 19, Scott. You had Alaric Jackson on the left. You had Tristan Wirfs on the right. You had Tyler Linderbaum at center, but you couldn't block. If you have a weak link, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
Michigan. They gave up 8 sacks against Michigan. They couldn't block Penn State. They lost those games. And they still went 10-3, but you're not going to win the big games if you can't block. So that's a huge question.
The Michigan game, of those two, I thought the Michigan game was just unacceptable. I mean, they were inside the 36-yard line 6 times, and they come away with a total of 3 points. Michigan hits a big, gets a touchdown like on the first drive of the game or second drive of the game, and then did nothing. And
Iowa fumble. Iowa fumbled, right?
Yeah, I think it was a fumbled punt, maybe. Or, well, maybe you're right. Run. Yeah, I think you're right. It might have been like either Kelly Martin or somebody like that. But either way, that was a malpractice. Now, I'll also say that that was Alec's first game after spraining his knee. Tristan played his worst game probably in college. Even maybe he had some rougher performances as a true freshman in 17, but this one was one that was unacceptable to him. And Michigan had a really good defense too. So I mean, it's not like they should have won. Like this was a Ferentz ball game. And then I want to say that Brian called like 24 passes in a row in the fourth quarter.
I remember doing DVR Monday on that. I'll have to go back and read that. But I remember it was like, that was talk about malpractice. There was a lot of stuff going on in that game.
Brian had every year there was one where one game where you're like, what are you doing?
Like 17.
Yeah, that one's at the top of the list. And Northwestern in 20 and a lot of those games, but and then against Penn State they turned Robert Windsor, kind of a nice defensive tackle, into the National Player of the Week, because
he was Aaron Donald against the Hawks.
You got the Paulson brothers, they were playing, they were trying out there, I guess, but
well, it was Mekhi Sargent. It was the first snap of the game for the Hawkeyes. Loss of 3 yards, fumbled at his own 18. Michigan punched it in for 3 right out of the gate and won that game 10-3. But anyway, blocking, big deal. It's a big important deal. So if Iowa's offensive line is going to be good, got to solve left tackle. Not that they have to be there this Saturday, but you want to see signs that they're going in the right direction there. Right. What other storylines are on your mind, Scott?
I'm going to go with wide receiver, because I think they're really deep there, and we've heard good things. But now it goes from I'm hearing good things to seeing good things. You've got to see it. People can talk things up all they want, but now it's time. All right, let's see what KJ Parker can do. Did Grease Vanderzee take a step forward? How is Seth Anderson? He's healthy? Really? Is he going to be the difference maker that they thought they had? What about Sam Phillips? He's a little smaller than we thought maybe coming in, but he was productive. Who can kind of emerge there and take that step? That's what I want to see with receiver, and how competitive are they with the defensive backs? And that probably goes both ways. But, in the past, it's always been like, oh, look, they finally got open on a play. Now it's a little more and I want to see how they work with the quarterbacks. And I might even watch a little more 7-on-7 than I usually do, just because I want to see this. So,
that's a good point.
And then running back rotation. Because they've got guys, they've got, I think, true freshman Nathan McNeil was really impressive and his numbers are off the charts. Brevin Dahl has got, speed all over the place. TJ Washington has been really impressive. Jazz Patterson is kind of the forgotten guy, but he's 210 pounds. He's physical. He likes to run up, hard. And Kamari is, I think he is tied for number one and one of the betting services. I'll look it up as far as, leading the Big Ten in rushing. So you've got your skill positions are in pretty good shape here, Chad. But I do want to see out of the receivers who's going to be in that top 5 to 6.
You got your Lee Corso pencil there, but you got your ball.
Oh.
You got your ball.
Yeah, I know. I
like it.
I have my basketball. I got a basketball hoop here, so also
I mean, I think both those positions you just mentioned, those are going to be fun. Those are going to be fun to watch because there's a lot of guys. I think it's a good sign, honestly, for Iowa if Jacob Gill is not your best receiver this year. Like if you've got about 4 or 5 other guys that are really good. He was what they needed last year. But,
absolutely.
This year, can you take that to the next level with big plays? And that's what Tim Lester's, hunting. He's hunting the big play. A whole array of guys at running back. Moulton's certainly the leader. Brevin, he's, you guys know he's my guy. He's his vertical's up to 43 inches and his weight's over 210 now. So 43 inches. He's got better numbers than Coop did.
Yeah, that is amazing.
So this is an athlete. So can they use him? Is he going to be a special team? We'll see. He was hurt in the spring, but they've just got a ton of guys. TJ Washington, they're so high on. Jazz Patterson does everything right. Xavier Williams, could he be a goal line back? The guy's got like trunks for legs, apparently. Can't wait to see him. And then you mentioned McNeil. So yeah, a lot of fun. I just think those are fun positions to watch this week. I agree. You got to see it. I thought we saw it at the spring game. That's why I feel I feel encouraged at receiver. And if you've got a running game, you should be able to succeed at receiver. Just go back and watch the Michigan State game and see a quarterback that just missed wide open receivers in the first half and got you guys in a big hole.
Exactly. I wonder. I shouldn't bring this up, but I will just for the heck of it. When you look at Brevin Dahl and you bring up Cooper DeJean and you look at those explosiveness numbers, is there? I wonder if there's ever a position change in his future. And I'm speculating wildly, and I hope I shouldn't be doing this, but when you see somebody on the depth chart who's that talented, that's pushed back a little bit, you start to wonder. And anyway, I just kind of was thinking that and unfiltered. Unfiltered. So, maybe I need a filter, and maybe that means I need to go to Big Grove tonight.
There you go.
And have something there. But I think, Chad, we love one of our new sponsors, and that's Big Grove. It's a fantastic place. It started out in Solon, and now you can go to Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Des Moines. We had our show at the Iowa City Big Grove in South Iowa City and loved every minute of it. Great to have Ben McCollum there. The food is great, which we can really appreciate. And, of course, they're the beers. The Easy Eddie is their signature beer, Citrus Surfer, the neighborhood beer, kind of a light Pilsner. But then for me, Chad, I'm huge into I love the red ale, the American Amber of 1939, which is named after the Ironman. That's probably my favorite beer that's brewed locally by anybody. And then, the other part for me, it's October. It's getting close to Oktoberfest season. My son lives just south of Munich, and so he's going to go to it this year. But, their Oktoberfest blend is fantastic. So I would encourage, everybody to stop by your local Big Grove brewery, or if you're in town for an Iowa game, swing over to the one in South Iowa City or the OG up in Solon. Yeah. I think it's as good as there is in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, and I think a lot of you guys know this already because it came out or whatever that night. But Ben McCollum left our show. and went to the Big Grove in Solon. So even the head coach of the men's basketball team is on board with our new sponsor in doubly that night. So we really appreciate them, and great place to go Friday night before the game in Iowa City too, or Saturday night after the game. So, we're really excited about Big Grove coming aboard, and awesome place. Just closing the loop on that Brevin Dahl thing. Totally agree, but he's just a redshirt freshman. He's really just kind of getting his feet wet here. I could see him being I know he's worked at gunner too. Like I could see him being a real good special teamer this year. Maybe even in the maybe kick return. Who knows? I mean, that'd be to me. Maybe your second kick returner. With Weechin back there,
right?
Or maybe you don't put. You got to put Weechin back there, right? In both.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. He's all American.
Yeah.
So you're turning.
Yeah. And he's second team receiver anyway. So, but anyway, like I said, all these running backs, it's going to be fun to see how they use them, and it's fun. And as someone pointed out in my text group, and I'm not taking a shot at the previous OC here, but they're real excited about this team because they feel like they've got an offensive coordinator who knows how to use the weapons that he does have. You look at Caleb Johnson last year, perfect example of that. He realized early on he didn't have quarterbacks. And even, you mentioned Brendan Sullivan out playing Cade. Like there were some issues with Sullivan too, where it was mental issues where it was hard to know which guy they should go with, from week to week. And finally they did kind of pull that trigger after the concussion protocol for Cade. Yeah. But anyway, but I think that's what's exciting. It'll be fun to see how Tim Lester uses these guys. So anyway.
Well, yeah, again, I'm not going to single out one person necessarily, but I'll say this, that I know that it was like eating dry toast with nothing on it for years on offense. You were getting the same thing over and over again. Sometimes it wasn't so bad, when you have Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson, or you have some receivers or Tyler Goodson and stuff. But even then, there wasn't a lot of hope that the offense was going to pull things out. And I think with the schematic change, with the way things have been altered on offense, that you can actually think that, yeah, they look better. They look like they're trying to do something different. Kind of like we always hear the stories, and you may have been there. I wasn't, certainly in 1979 when Hayden Fry, they start moving guys around, everybody's standing up and cheering. It's like, hey, there's something different going on here. Or even 2015 when they tried the fake field goal and they didn't make it with Marshall Kane, and everybody's giving them a standing ovation. It's like they want to embrace different because the same hasn't worked. And I think that's one thing to look at this offense, Chad, and say, I appreciate that they're trying to do something different here. The motions, the finding isolating matchups, doing things different, having a quarterback that's going to cost you $2 million. That doesn't. You just do it. You want to make sure you put yourself in position to win these games, and I think again, very, very difficult schedule. But I'll say this to cap it: if they go 10-2, they deserve to be in the playoff.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the schedule in a way. Like it's hard, but it gives you opportunity to be a strong 10-2. Yeah, you don't have to go 11-1 like Indiana did last year.
Or if they would have went 11-1 last year, Chad, I don't know that they would have gotten in. Or it might have been them or Indiana, at 11-1. And style points matter, and I don't know that they would have had them.
They do. Yeah. If the offense can be pretty good. Yeah, those style points will mean a lot. Iowa's got an offense now. They're kind of fun to watch, Like it's not just like 13-3.
Yeah. Let's look at the defense, Chad. What's going to catch your eye this week, and what are you going to look at on that side of the ball when we're not watching quarterback?
Yeah, a lot of stuff, honestly, is on my mind. But if I had to pick one spot, it's definitely what are they going to do? What are they doing at linebacker? How good are those two linebackers, Jaden Harrell and Carson Shire? But is there some movement for a potential competition at linebacker? I think we'll. I'm excited to talk to Seth Wallace on Media Day. I feel like we're going to get a glimpse of kind of who's up and coming. You mentioned Preston Reese earlier in the show, Scott. You got to use guys like this, right? In some way, shape, or form. Will those freshmen be just special teamers this year? Or will they potential rotation. And then, I think we'll probably learn more of that in interviews this week, honestly, than we will on the field. Because I expect Harrell and Shire, as long as they're healthy. Always a question with Shire, but as long as they're healthy, I'm sure those are going to be the two guys, and of course Rex Roth at Leo. But the linebacker, I just want to learn. That's more of a media day thing for me, is learning about what's going on a linebacker, like how because I think they feel good about the depth there, but it's just how quickly can you integrate that? Those really talented guys coming up, like how are you going to put them on hold for a year? Or are you going to unleash them? And I want to know that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that is the most. I think it's the most important unsettled group right now at linebacker, because you are replacing two guys that have been in college football combined 11 years leaving, and they're both in NFL camps. And Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson, and so you've got people like Jaden Harrell have waited their time way too long. But he got there, and Carson Shire, who's been injured, but he's the same way. Jackson Rexroth, the same way. And now it's like, okay, now it's your turn, but you've got to do what's best for your team, the program. And and as good as they can be, we know the talent level, especially of the three redshirt freshmen and Cam Buffington, Derek Weisskopf, and Preston Reese, that they are elite athletes. And if you get close, if it's like a draw, if it's like they're both performing well, let's say Preston Reese at middle and Jaden Harrell at middle, it's kind of a wash. You got to go young in that situation, unless you can't trust them, unless you think, but even so, they wouldn't be close if that was the case. So I think that competition is really fascinating, because that is going to be a really important one when you start looking at who's going to be able to defend zone read against Iowa State and Rocco Becht. And later on, especially when you're talking about Fernando Mendoza in Indiana and on, you're going to have a guy who can seal it off, but also can make plays. And I think that's going to be interesting. But I think for me, the one that I'm going to watch probably the closest on defense is maybe the cornerback opposite TJ Hall. And, is Deshaun Lee, he's still only a junior. And, he's played a lot, and he hasn't been great. He's been good at times, and other times he's been, average or below average. But when you have Shahid Barrios, and you have Jalen Watson, and you've got other guys there, I want to see what that competition's like. Are they rotating in, or is there a definite first team? What does Phil Parker say? Is it, hey, it's we're rotating them day by day, or it's like, well, he's pulling ahead, he's playing really well? Because I think that the safeties and Cash, I feel really good about. I think they're going to be, I think Xavier Wampa is due for a breakout season, and Cohen Entringer may be one of the best defensive backs in the Big Ten. And this is like an NFL training ground this year in defensive backs in the Big Ten.
Right. The only other spot, I think we've kind of solved things at defensive tackle with the two transfers and Graves, and we'll see who that fourth guy ends up being. I think it's Will Hubert right now, but could it be someone else? It's just kind of, how much pass rush do they have? Jose Epinesa, what are they doing with him? That's a big one for me. Like, can you get him on the field this year? Like you did AJ. AJ was a game wrecker right away. Yeah. And Jose is supposed to be better, right? So can you, get him out there? You've got Herkett, you got Llewellyn, you got, I want to see how healthy Brian Allen is at end. Purdy's doing good, but we'll see. Vanessa, Merriweather, one of those other young guys.
Joseph Anderson,
yeah, right. Chineke. There's a lot of another position with a lot of names and a lot of intrigue. It could be a sneaky position, because I love Llewellyn. I think he's going to be great. Yeah. And can you get more pass rush this year?
Well, with AJ Epinesa, he got a sack in his very first game against his current teammate and NFL MVP, Josh Allen, who somebody was telling me that he wasn't very good back then, that he was overrated. And I said, well, the 10 NFL scouts sitting directly behind me might suggest otherwise. But, if Jose can come in and play 10 to 15 snaps a game, get him a lot of experience against Albany and UMass, and see if he can really develop into that, because you got, two guys. And the thing I like is that there's enough of a stagger between him and, say, Ethan Hurkett and Llewellyn too, in age, that it's not the same dynamic that AJ faced, where second year he leads the Big Ten at sacks, and yet, well, he's still backing up, Parker Hesse and, right. and Nathan Nelson. But, it's just like, he needs to start. He's good, So, I think that's something I want to see is, does he get in? I imagine he's probably third team right now is my guess, but he probably sneaks into some second team snaps. So keeping track of the personnel groups will be, probably the thing I watch the most overall, which I always did, going way back with Morehouse. It's like personnel groupings, and he did the play-by-play. I'm not going to do as much play-by-play, but I'll do the personnel groupings.
Well, it's always fun. We got to be careful what we tweet, right? Remember the famous Petrus Kids Day tweets? Yeah.
You're killing me.
Great, yeah. One, I can't remember this. What was it? Do you remember it?
I thought I tweeted something that, the quarterbacks actually look really good. And then you send your text group, like, I don't know, half hour later that the quarterbacks and I'm like, they were good when I tweeted that. And he was right too, but I got drilled for that.
said this,
I'm like, he's right at that time. I was right at my time. I'm
just saying, we got to align our tweets.
Yeah, it's like,
we don't throw off the natives here. So.
Yeah, exactly. But one last thing I do want to see is are there going to be any true freshmen that step in and end up in some sort of a second team environment? And Yosei is in a different plane, but or one of the defensive backs, CJ Bell or Alante Dean, maybe one of the tight ends, Thomas Meyer or somebody, Nathan McNeil, can they emerge to compete in that second team, which means, all right, they're probably not going to redshirt. I look forward to that, but there's still only a weekend of practice, and they got 3 more weeks until game time. So a lot can change and will change, as we know, because sometimes they just withhold people and then all of a sudden they just change. So I'm also anxious about that.
It's too bad they don't let us into that scrimmage they have a week from this Saturday.
Yeah,
that's the one where I think they start making decisions on those freshmen. Can they do it or whatever? So that's stuff we probably won't learn this week, but nonetheless, tons for us to learn over those 2 days. And the good news is, folks, is we have a live show scheduled for you Monday. So our show next week will be on Monday morning. Tentatively aiming for 10:30 a.m. Could change based on, we have other jobs too. But right now, 10:30 a.m. is our plan on Monday to go live to kind of react to Kids Day, Media Day, kind of recap the weekend with myself and Scott. One more topic you wanted to get to, Scott. The Athletic kind of did a Heisman draft for Big Ten players. I'll just say it this way. Which Big Ten players could wind up as Heisman Trophy finalists or candidates?
Yeah, and I think it's fun that we're going to talk about this, because I ended up number 3 overall. Yeah, there it is, got pulled up. And my first pick was I was gifted Arch Manning right off the bat, so I was happy with that for obvious reasons. But I think when we start to look kind of deeply here, our number 2 pick, and this is probably the one that everybody will gravitate towards, is Jeremiah Smith. He is the best player to me in the country. To look the way he did as an 18-year-old last year, it was something that I have never seen before. People, the number 1 quarterback, he made it in the first round, was Drew Aller from Penn State. That's natural. If Penn State's really good, can he step in and do all the things that quarterbacks who take their teams to national title games do? And last year, in the close moments against good teams, he didn't quite do that. This year, he's got a chance to do that. So he's expected to do it. Dante Moore from Oregon, the quarterback. He's an interesting story, Chad, because 2 years ago, he was a starting quarterback at UCLA as a true freshman and was very inconsistent, but he was a 5-star. And he was from Detroit. And then ended up transferring to UCLA or from UCLA to Oregon last year, and then sat behind Dylan Gabriel, and they're really high on him. They think he's got a chance to do some really good things. A couple of second-round quarterbacks. I picked one of them, Bryce Underwood, true freshman, #1 player in the country, and you used to be like, you're not taking a freshman for the Heisman. Well, that's been proven over time that freshmen can win this award. And if he takes Michigan, if they go and beat Oklahoma in week 2 and win the rest of their mostly modest schedule until they get to the very end, he's got a chance. I picked Damon Williams with my second pick because I think he's got a chance to be a dynamic player in college football. I think Washington's got a special trio with him and Denzel Boston, a wide receiver, and Jonah Coleman. Julian Sand got some votes at Ohio State, and hey, he's the Ohio State quarterback. Need I say more? 5-star, decommitted from Alabama as soon as Nick Saban hung it up. Nick Singleton, maybe and Micaiah Hughes, the best 2 running backs probably in the Big Ten. Nick Singleton last year ran for 1,000 yards, had a big game, 3 touchdowns against Notre Dame in the semifinals. Micaiah Hughes is transferring from Tulane, and the expectations are off the roof, for him. And then in the 4th round, there were 2 quarterbacks. One picked Dylan Raiola from Nebraska, and I said, you know what? My final pick, I'm going to take Mark Gronowski from the University of Iowa. And my reasoning is that, hey, he's already won a National Player of the Year award. He's led his team to 2 national titles. If it becomes Happy learned to putt for Iowa's offense, and all of a sudden they're in the Big Ten championship game or something like that because of him, that's going to swing a lot of people in his direction. And why can't he be a Brad Banks type, So that, it's my 4th round pick. It's not my first, but I also think that he's got the ability to do that. Anybody that stands out for you or anybody that I didn't mention that we didn't pick that should be on there?
No, not really. I think it's a great list. It's a fun exercise. I think the Penn State running backs are going to platoon, so it's really hard for me to picture one of them, being a Heisman guy. And same with Aller, I kind of rolled my eyes initially, but you're right. If they are #1 all year and he's kind of just patrolling that thing, you're right. That sometimes that does win you the Heisman. But no, that's a great list. I think Raiola is an interesting story this year. How good will he be in year 2? And certainly, Gronowski is high interest. We talked about that on our show. By the way, the Happy Gilmore second movie, did you watch that? It was so bad. Oh,
really? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. Seriously? I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it was dorky Gen X-y for me, and I loved it because the references I got, and the find the happy place, I laughed so hard, So sorry you didn't like it, but I thought it was great. I would watch it again.
Really? Oh my God, we almost turned it off many times, but we saw it through, but it was just cameo after cameo. Didn't laugh at all. Yeah.
Oh man, you couldn't laugh at the Scotty Scheffler stuff?
Well, that was a little bit clever. Yeah, that was clever.
Oh man.
It was just,
Oh no. Well, we definitely on opposite sides here because I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was going to win an Oscar.
I guess you got to go into it with the right expectations. Yeah, it's just like a football season. You got to go into it with expectations.
I had people were all panning it before. I'm like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. And then I was surprised, and then I was laughed, and then I thought, you know what, I kind of like this movie, and but I like a lot of those. Dumb and Dumber is probably my all-time favorite comedy. I screamed laughing the whole time I watched it for the first time. Because I like toilet humor and that kind of stuff. So
there you go.
Crude humor. That's just me.
Maybe that's the big difference. Anyway, we will Monday. Was just 3-4 days away here. Our next Legends and Listeners, and we'll have. What are you doing there? Okay.
Scared the hell out of me with that music. I thought it was like firecrackers going off, and I'm like, whoa.
Legends and listeners coming back at you Monday, only from the Channel Seed Studios, only on Iowa Everywhere.